Hi everyone, I have an exclusive discount for Hard Calls listeners to Pendemonium, Pendo's product festival. I would like to invite you to join me in Raleigh, North Carolina from March 24th to 26th with an exclusive 30% discount when you use the code HARDCALLS30. That's Hard Calls, all lowercase, and the numbers 30. Get your discounted ticket at pendo.io/Pendemonium. See you there. Taking that back a level to your product team, how do they think about personalizing experiences for their customers and their craft of product, and what data they use to make decisions in the product on a day-to-day basis?
There's an exercise we call the 5 whys. So whenever a particular problem comes up, and so we call in to all right, look, we need to build a feature to go and solve this problem. We'll sit and we'll play the 5 whys. Well, why is that a problem? Well, that's a problem because of this other thing. Well, why is this other thing a problem? And if you do that 5 times, then you get to just a very fundamental issue. And then we look to address that issue. That there have been so many times where if we've forgotten to play 5 whys, that we end up solving something that is kind of a surface level problem, but it's not the fundamental issue. So with all the problems that we come in, we'll sit and we'll play 5 whys to understand, gotta get to a root cause, and then let's go out and talk to customers.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to Hard Calls, the podcast where we highlight the best product leaders from across the globe. If you're new to the show, I'd like to welcome you and invite you to hit follow or subscribe so you can stay up to date with all the latest episodes. On today's show, I am so excited to have Daniel Haisley with me. Daniel is the Senior Vice President of Product Management at CSI, where his responsibilities include leading the vision and delivery of digital banking, account origination, data intelligence, and loan origination solutions. I was lucky enough to get to know Daniel when I was the Chief Product Officer at nCino. Both of us are based in the same beach town in North Carolina, and we both came from SaaS companies that support the banking industry. After I left nCino and came to Pendo, Daniel and I's paths were lucky enough to cross again, not only because Aperture, which is where he was the Chief Product Officer and which is now a part of CSI since their recent acquisition, was a customer of Pendo, but beyond that, we partnered on their product Data Engage. Daniel and I share a commitment to helping financial institutions, and frankly, any company for that matter, with personalization and analytics and achieving outcomes through great products. Thanks for being here, Daniel.
I'm super excited about this. Thank you so much for having me.
We're going to have fun, and I'm excited to just chat today. So, as you know, this is the Hard Calls podcast. And so before we jump into learning a little bit about you and your view on product and how you've helped the banking industry, we got to start with your hard call. So Daniel, tell us a little bit, looking back over your career, what, product leadership, we make hard calls every day. That's our job. And I think it's one of the most fun parts of the job, but also the hardest part of the job. So share with us a hard call that you've had to make and maybe what made it so challenging, but also how did you make it?
Yeah. So, I can think even in recent time, as we've gone through an acquisition, and so we were being acquired as part of Aperture, being acquired by a large organization, which was CSI. And as part of that, we need to go through and kind of create a unified product organization. And if I think of the general realm of problems or challenges or calls to make, there's always the call of, well, in the market, what problem do we want to go and solve? Then there's, in a B2B world particularly, how to lean into relationships, when to be guided, when to guide, managing those relationships with clients specifically. And then third, and what I think is most importantly, is the people. It's the people side of things. So I think one of the hardest calls that, which is really just a series of calls that we've had to make over the last 3 months, is to determine for those people who are these sorts of acquisitions, they create opportunity. And who's ready to take that next step? Who's the kind of super ambitious and they put in time. They're ready to do the next step, or they think that they're ready to do the next step. Setting, and conversely, folks that they've been around for a very long time and maybe they know the domain, they know what it is, but don't necessarily have the same kind of fire, and they're at a place where they're just comfortable. Setting an org chart and putting people in positions where I think they can be most successful. And for some people, that's going to be really stretching them. For some people, it's going to be just setting expectations of, hey, here's the kind of the bar of excellence, and this is what we want to hit. That's really challenging because I've had to deliver good news to folks, and I've had to deliver really challenging news to folks, and doing that in such a way that keeps the team aligned, keeps people inspired to go and tackle and kind of meet a shared vision, puts everyone in a position to challenge the process, but still be encouraged to go and do that. It's been really challenging.
I love that that's your hard call. Those of us in product, at the end of the day, we're often doing acquisitions or being acquired, right? It's a common outcome, often an outcome to be celebrated. So congrats to you and the team at Aperture for that outcome. But it does all come down to the people and the culture that you had and you built successfully that drove your success at Aperture might not be the exact skills and culture that you need as a part of a bigger and different organization of CSI. And so I think that's such a good topic to bring up, because at the end of the day, these products, they're built by people, right? And our people are our biggest asset and our most important asset to take care of. And yeah, delivering the good news is really fun. But, delivering the bad news, while it's not the most fun thing in the moment, I've always felt like it's also a gift to people, because if I'm not right for a certain organization at a certain point in time, it's better off for everyone in the long run if they can go work and put their skills and time and effort at somewhere where they are the right fit. And while it's a hard call in the moment, I think in the end, it makes it better for everybody.
Yeah, it reminds me, I had a young lady that I worked with for a number of years, and she was you give her the thing, whatever the thing was, and guaranteed she would be able to go and knock that out. As smart as you could ask for, willing to work as hard as you could possibly. She was fantastic, but swam with a very wide wake. Would be really challenging even for clients, but also for coworkers around, and in some ways was inhibiting the growth of the people around her. So making the really hard decision to say, I think you have a really bright future in front of you, but that may not be here.
Yeah.
That's a really tough call to make. But I've never looked back and regretted making those sorts of decisions. To your point, I think it's ended up being better for everyone involved, including and particularly, probably especially for that person.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Dave, I know Aperture and now CSI, a big part of what you do is to help financial institutions deliver amazing personalized experience to their customer base. Tell us a little bit about that, your view on how you do that, how you've been so successful as a product leader delivering these kinds of solutions.
Yeah. So I can talk a little bit about, I can talk a lot about kind of digital banking and the banking space, but this all correlates to just the broader world that we live in. If you think of the way banking has worked historically, particularly in the community banking space where we have traditionally operated, these banks have competed by physical location of the branches. And I opened my first account when I was 14, 15 years old at Old National Bank because that's where my parents banked in Evansville, Indiana, where I grew up. And so naturally, that's where I got my first account. And then I move on. And as I get to college, I open an account at Purdue Employees Federal Credit Union. And I move on. And the physical location of the branches kind of drove those sorts of relationships. But that changed dramatically over the last 10, 15 years to where it's not about physical location. So what happened was people walk into the branches and you'd have conversations. You'd establish relationships and rapport with tellers and with people that are running the desk and the branch managers and so forth. And you'd share information. Going to be graduating coming up. Hey, saving up. I'm going to buy a new vehicle. Hey, we're thinking of buying a house. Hey, Maria's pregnant. Well, it looks like we're expecting. And all these life events. And that helped to develop that relationship and helped them to be able to serve me uniquely. But what happens when people don't walk into branches anymore?
Yeah.
And
how do you give that same feeling of being welcomed, of knowing us as humans and what's going on in our lives? How do you do that digitally?
That's right. And at the end of the day, people want to be treated and known for what they are, what's unique to them. What are the unique skills or attributes that they bring to the people around them? So in a world where you're not sharing those data points by having conversations back and forth, and we can talk about the tenets of that, it has to come to data. Like, we are really fortunate in the banking space that we have information, like we can see where people are voting with their dollars, where they're spending money, and that is a manifestation of what are the challenges, what's important to them. And so to be able to then use that information to help us out. Okay, what's important to this particular customer, small business owner, to the consumer, whomever, and then provide the right message at the right time, at the right place, within the user interface, within the experience, wherever that may be, is the overarching goal, to drive everything to be much more personalized than it is today. And I think that that manifests itself well outside of banking. One of the things I love is I get my Spotify 2025 year wrapped. And what did I listen to? And it's all messed up because now my kids are listening to I'm all Taylor Swift.
So your music age is not correct anymore because they've taken over.
Yeah, but the same thing with YouTube and with these other services. We've become accustomed to these services that have scaled to serve billions.
Yeah.
Still knowing us and treating us uniquely based on what's important to us. Yeah. So much of our discussion and so much of what we do as a product organization say, how can we do that in the domains that we serve? Because that's the expectation that's set.
So I love how you've taken data, whether that's through your partnership with Pendo, Data Engage, or, the banking core data you get access to, et cetera, and really helped financial institutions deliver this personalized experience to their customers. I think that is critically important in today's day and age, like you said. And I agree. I think we all, because we have so much experience with digital apps in our day-to-day consumer and business lives, we just expect that today. And I think it's difficult for banks to deliver without a partnership with someone like Aperture. So congrats to you for being able to do that. Taking that back a level to your product team, how do they think about personalizing experiences for their customers and their craft of product, and what data they use to make decisions in the product on a day-to-day basis?
There's an exercise we call the 5 whys. So whenever a particular problem comes up, and so we call in to all right, look, we need to build a feature to go and solve this problem. We'll sit and we'll play the 5 whys. Well, why is that a problem? Well, that's a problem because of this other thing. Well, why is this other thing a problem? And if you do that 5 times, then you get to just a very fundamental issue. And then we look to address that issue. That there have been so many times where if we've forgotten to play 5 whys, that we end up solving something that is kind of a surface level problem, but it's not the fundamental issue. So with all the problems that we come in, we'll sit and we'll play five whys to understand, gotta get to a root cause. And then let's go out and talk to customers. We've developed a hypothesis now. So think just scientific method. All right. We think that this is a problem. Now we'll get to all right, is it a problem that people will pay to solve? Is there value? Is this a problem? And we've been really fortunate to, we're in a B to B to C space, which can be super challenging at times. But to be able to go to the financial institutions that we serve, and at times actually to their users as well, and say, hey, we think that this is an issue. What do you think? And how we go about holding research sessions, and we have an awesome design and research team where they'll do like card sorting. So we'll have 10 cards. We say, we think these are problems. Put these in the order that you think we should go and address them. And we do that at scale. And then you start to get kind of law of large numbers feedback that helps inform what are the problems that we want to go and solve.
I love that. And, there's nothing that can replace the importance of knowing our customers and developing really clear product taste and product sense. And that only comes from a deep understanding of your customer, which means we've got to spend time with them. What about data? How do you think about both qualitative and quantitative data feeding that process in addition to those super important customer conversations?
So data is it's the gold, it's the oil of the 21st century. It's what I say is the most valuable asset that a lot of financial institutions have access to. They're also generally terrible about actually being able to unlock the value from it on behalf of the customers. So for us, data is not something that we kind of get into lightly and we'll just give this a shot. We've been very fastidious about in this space, you have to bat 1,000 as it relates to data security and governance and all of the things that allow us to sleep well at night. So get all of the infrastructure in place. And then it's pulling in different data sources. And okay, I've got, I see how people are traveling through the app or not traveling through the app using the data that we're getting from Pendo. I see the information that's coming in from our account origination solution. So I get this. I see the information that we'll have around like scheduled transfers and where transactions coming through. Now, how do we pull all of this together to identify those opportunities or identify the needs and then tag those with strategies to go and solve? If you don't have the data, it's really difficult to do. And what you end up doing is creating a high level. It's show me everyone who has a checking account but no savings account and go and market a savings account to them. Well, sure, but that's not meaningful.
Yeah, it's not personalization, right?
No.
Yeah. And so it's interesting to hear how you use data, how you spend time with customers to really develop that point of view. And then, you then turn around and offer that data to your financial institution customers. You are in a very unique B2B to C sort of type business. You have a very mature and robust product team that understands this type of data, that knows how to make those decisions. Do the financial institutions that you work with in the to C part have that same level of maturity? And how do you help them think like you do as a product team?
Yeah. You'll be slow to find any financial institution that says they don't have a data strategy. And oftentimes we're setting up a data warehouse. Well, to do what? Yeah. We can help with all of it. What
problem are you going to solve with that?
That's exactly right. And we see that issue as much as anything. You can go and get data analysts and data scientists and business analysts and hydrate these pipelines and get all of your data in order. But if you can't, the biggest two gaps that we see, because we can provide all of the tooling. We can help with having the data organized and having it in a usable form. But biggest two problems we see are, number one, ownership. So getting through I don't know if it's kind of corporate politics inside of a financial institution that says, well, who should be able to put this sort of a message in front of customers?
Mm-hmm.
Where the business lead says, well, I'm responsible for the business. I've got the P&L, so we should. When technology says, well, this is a technical thing, so we need to make sure that our hands are here. And marketing says, whoa, we've got the brand, so we all have to be aligned. And what ends up happening is just everyone just says, safe and neat, and walk away.
And how do you help them solve that, right? How do you help them get out of that paralysis of lack of ownership because you can't deliver personalization to their customers if you can't get them through, who owns and can communicate to them in app.
So often they don't recognize that that's the issue. Everyone kind of thinks that everyone else is doing the thing, and there's paralysis there. Having executives at these financial institutions that can drive accountability, are aware of the opportunity and can drive accountability makes such a big difference. And then the second thing that comes out of that is, okay, you get all that in place, you got data in place, you know who's accountable for it. They need to know the business. They need to know kind of consumer psychology. They need to understand, to be able to focus on what is the specific problem that you want to solve. Start with one problem, then to two, then to three, then move on from there. And so often what we see is people have just, we need to get our data house in order. We need to see analytics. We need to get our analytics in place, and have no idea how they're going to use them. No idea what problem they want to solve with them.
Yeah.
So many of our conversations with financial institutions are saying, here's some problems that we've seen solved elsewhere. Try this. Try to go and solve that particular thing. You're not getting enough debit card usage. We want to drive debit card usage. Perfect. Here's where we've seen success elsewhere. They're a micro business. Now they're moving to like a legitimate small business. And so they're going to get into ACH and wire origination, which can be a little bit more complicated. All right, well, let's use Data Engage, and let's put a video or a walkthrough of the first time they click on this. Here's how to use this. But the more granular they can be about what problem they want to solve and for whom, the more successful they are.
Love that. For these financial institutions that you partner with, you talked about, let's try this. Let's get to the outcome you're trying to solve. And I can tell you what best practices are. I can tell you what's worked for other financial institutions. But you also talked about that consumer psychology, and the best product people who are delivering products to consumers understand experimentation and a culture of trying and a culture of failing fast and iteration and not trying to get to perfection. So are you able to have those kinds of conversations as well with financial institutions? Like, it's not the end of the world. We can try this with a small group of people. Or are they just paralyzed with the perfection?
Technology has helped in this front so much in the last 5 to 10 years. Because historically, think, if you were going to set up an A/B test or something, and everybody said, oh yeah, we A/B test. None of them actually did. We're going to A/B test this particular thing. It was so much work in order to actually do that.
Yeah.
Carving off who, how, and then you'd have to upload for this, and only how in the world are you going to run the technology to only show it to this group? And it was expensive, and that's not the case anymore.
Yeah.
So before, if you're going to go through all of that effort, then it's going to cost you thousands, tens of thousands or more in order to just run that basic experiment, A/B experiment. Then you are going to measure, cut. And if your cut wasn't straight, you're never going to do it again. Whereas today, that's not the case. You can iterate on an idea, have it live in 30 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, you could do that with they could use Data Engage to try different onboarding, different experiments to try to drive that debit card usage with 3 different sets of their customer base and see which one works, right? Or if you go back to general product, we had the ability to vibe code and get up real experiences really quick and do experimentation really quickly as well. Both of those being great solutions depending on what you're trying to experiment with.
Yeah. So I'm taking with a little bit of grain of salt. There's still some, like we're in the banking space, and you need to bat a high percentage. With security and data security and all those things, you can't play around with that in any way. But I wonder if we targeted this kind of group with this sort of a message, would they originate more? Would they use their card more? Would they open a savings account? Will they do it? Try it. It's easy.
Yeah. That takes zero engineering effort.
That's right.
And trying 3 different messages, one with video, one without, one that's a 3-click, one that's a 0, using different segments of your user base and seeing which one works. That's a great sort of no-lose experiment. Because to your point, you're not introducing any new security risk. You're not introducing any new technology or tools. This is data engage that you're getting from CSI and Aperture that's already approved and a known quantity, yet without engineering, you could try to build 3 different messages and experiments, or 10, and see which one works and gets you the business outcomes that you're trying to get. Seems like kind of a no-brainer way for financial institutions to experiment and really take on that product mindset, that B2C data first mindset.
It's a culture change where it historically is, well, if we don't get 80% click-through rate, pick your number, this really high click-through rate, then this will have been a failure. We will have spent all this time and all this money. And so we don't have to do that anymore. Now we can just go, and if nobody clicks it, we say, oh, what did we learn from this? We iterate and we get 10% better each time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. You get 2% better, 10% better. That's remarkable numbers. And to your point, you're not worrying about getting it perfect the first time, and you can roll it out. You can roll it out to such a small subset of the overall population. And then coming back to where we started around personalization, it's not even just what's the right message and trying a couple and running an experiment to figure out what the right message is. It's figuring out what is the right message for the right person, and using personalization concepts and data to really drive the perfect message for the perfect person. And so experimentation for these financial institutions needs, to your point, not be about, click rates. It needs to be about the end outcome, having that product mindset, and then delivering different personalized message to different segments of the user base to really drive those outcomes.
100%. 100%.
That's an exciting proposition for financial institutions, especially when you talk about your customer base, which are typically community and regional institutions. These people don't have huge, large data science teams. They don't have, all of, the tools brought in that you do and I do. And so for you to be able to package up something like Data Engage for them, that is a real gift for them to be able to take on a true product mindset. And I think for the listeners of Hard Calls who are product people, this is something really interesting. Like, how do you, as a product manager, when you're delivering solutions to an industry that might not be as technically savvy or have the kinds of technical and R&D budgets and people that we all have as product companies, how can you package up data, partner with different companies to be able to give some sliver of that to your customer base so that they can really focus on outcomes? I think that's a really interesting general solution and trick for product people to really take a step back and think about. We always think about our customers and building and delivering solutions, but like giving them a bit of a tool set so they can drive outcomes, especially if you're in a B2B to C product space, I think is something people don't put enough time into.
Yeah. The ability to give them the opportunity to differentiate in some level of a commoditized space. If you give someone an easy way to differentiate themselves and to give their customers an answer to, why should I give my business to you? Why should I bank with you? Why should I use your app? Why should I? Because people want to hear their names. They want to know that you know them uniquely. And so to the extent you're able to put those tools in their hands where they can move fast and they can learn from it, and iterate and get better each time, it is the way of the world.
I love that. So many traditional businesses over the last decade have been moving from physical to digital. It hasn't stopped. They're also now moving not just to digital, but to agentic experiences and agentic AI. And so for those of us in product who are focused on deep vertical SaaS and helping these institutions who are moving from physical to digital understand what personalization means and what product management mindset and what data is needed to be successful in that transformation is a gift that we can give to our customers. And I appreciate the way you guys at Aperture CSI have done that for the banking industry, and appreciate the fact that we've been able to partner on that together.
I love it. Yeah. Pendo's been a tremendous partner for us, and we've grown and evolved together, and think that the brightest years are certainly ahead. So we're on the right path.
Well, congrats, Daniel. Thanks for opening up and sharing your acquisition story and your hard calls on people through acquisition. I know that's something all of our listeners will relate to. And then for just sharing not just personalization for the banking industry, but overall product management in the B2B to C world, and helping institutions transform from physical to digital. So thank you for being on Hard Calls and sharing all that today.
I love it. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks. Thank you for listening to Hard Calls, the product podcast where we share best practices and all the things you need to succeed. If you enjoyed the show today, share it with your friends and come back for more.